So the Trust for Public Land GIS department is located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So that's where I live. I've come a long way to do this presentation for you. But it's nice to be back here in North Carolina. My mom lives in Chapel Hill, so I'm going to get a chance to see her, which is a nice bonus. And then I actually lived here for about 3 years, about 15 years ago. I lived in Durham, worked for Greenways Incorporated, Chuck Flink. Some of you might have known him, or he's not in business anymore, but he did some great work, and that's actually where I learned my GIS work, was working for him. So I'm going to talk about a project that Trust for Public Land is doing to create the first national local parks data set. So I'm going to give a little brief overview of the Trust for Public Land for those of you who aren't familiar with that organization, a little context on the background of ParkServe, the strategies, really a good look at how we're actually creating this local park database, and then the conclusion in terms of where does North Carolina sit in this, and the release. So the Trust for Public Land is a national nonprofit conservation organization. We have about 30 offices across the country, and our mission is to create parks and protect land for people. So the important part there is land for people. We have 4 core services that we bring to our community partners. Plan is the planning and GIS piece. So this is looking at park master planning, level of service analysis, our green printing work, climate smart cities work that we do in GIS. Fund is our conservation finance arm. So this is helping communities actually raise public and private dollars for conservation. Protect is our on the ground work. This is actually how the organization started 40 plus years ago, actually doing the deals on the ground to conserve land for people. And then create is our urban work in park design and development. So ParkScore is an initiative the Trust for Public Land started 6 years ago to actually measure and rank and do analysis on the park systems of the largest cities in the country. So the first year of ParkScore, we did the 40 largest cities based on population. This coming May will be the 6th year release of that, and will be the 100 largest cities. It looks at 4 metrics to do analysis on the park system and rank them. So it's looking at acreage, it looks at spending and investment, it looks at amenities, and then the GIS component that it looks at is a 10-minute walk to every park within that park system, and who is being served by that 10-minute walk and who is not. So this is a good snapshot of last year's ParkScore release, the 2 ends of the spectrum. So Minneapolis on the left was #1 in the ranking. Fresno was 97 in the ranking. And you can see spatially just how well served in terms of the 10-minute walk Minneapolis is compared to Fresno. The red and orange that you see in the Fresno map, those are the areas outside that 10-minute walk that are the areas of park need. Those are based on 3 demographic profiles looking at population density, kids, and low-income households. And so the red areas are areas of very high need, so high population density, high kids, high low income, to create additional parks for people to actually have a 10-minute walk to recreate. So ParkServe is taking ParkScore to scale. It's creating the first nationwide authoritative resource for local parks and a 10-minute walk access analysis. Our study area for this is all urban areas across the country. So those not familiar with the urban area geography, this is a census-defined geography. It's the most densely populated areas in the country. It comes in 2 types of geography, an urbanized area and then an urban cluster. And we're collecting local park data in all those geographies. So what does that mean for the project itself? So at the end of the project in May 2018, we will have collected local park data for all 3,500 plus census-defined urban areas for almost 14,000 places. So that's cities, towns, municipalities. And the 10-minute walk analysis that we'll conduct on that data will look at who has access to a park within that 10-minute walk for over 80% of Americans. So this is an infographic that we developed to help our partners understand where we are in the project, kind of the big picture look at what it is. So you can see the timeline, we're just about halfway through. Our park collection progress, we're at 82% of urban residents we've collected park data for. On the right, you can see some statistics, just big picture things. So we already have almost 70,000 individual park records in the database. We've collected data for 400 of those 3,500 plus urban areas. So as you can tell, we've concentrated on those most populated urban areas first. 400 gets to 82% of the urban population. And then the coming soon at the top will be an actual population number for those people who actually are within a 10-minute walk of a park and open space within the urban areas. We haven't gotten to that modeling aspect of it yet, but that's coming soon. So there are 4 components to building this database, and I'll go into more depth in the coming slides about each of those. We do have and have selected an iterative approach to do this rather massive data collection. We've divided the 14,000 plus places into 6 quarterly collection efforts. Each collection effort has about 2,500 places in it. And then as we complete each of these collection efforts and fully implement each workflow, the next iteration begins. And so you can imagine that now we're into iteration 4, almost into 5, and we have a lot of balls up in the air in terms of not only collection and creation, but modeling and loading and verification all going at the same time. This was a monumental effort to get this off the ground starting last summer. We had 3 full-time staff, 3 interns, and 14 consultants working on it all summer and most of the fall. We currently have 3 full-time people and 5 interns working on this project. And we are scheduled to have data completely collected and on time by the end of this coming November. So the first component is the collection component. So this is actually contacting each place to see if they have GIS data. So that's going to their website, getting a contact, hopefully a GIS department, the Parks Department. Obviously the GIS department might not be tagged as GIS. It could be information systems, it could be community something, or it could be in planning. So doing some digging around that. And then obviously getting data if it's freely available off an open data source or from a download page, or getting it from them if they have it. Digging in and pulling any sort of other information around parks if they don't have GIS data, so list of parks or maps, anything of that sort. We do send emails to each of these municipalities as a first contact to inform them of the project and try to get information about their park system. So we have 2 forms that we developed to help track this. The top is a customized Excel form. This uses VBA and Power Query to pull directly from the SQL databases and then right back to those SQL databases for all the information that's entered into that Excel regarding data collection and contacts. And then the bottom is using Microsoft InfoPath to actually track the individual contacts. So everything about that contact, the person, the agency, the phone number, the email, the conversation, and whether there's GIS data or not. And so this process can actually take up to a month in terms of each place. So we've adopted the three-strike rule. So the first contact takes place, and 10 days later, if we have not received a response, this contact shows up in that second contact tab in the Excel sheet. And so the implementer knows, oh, I got to send out another email to this place because we haven't heard anything. 10 days later, if we still haven't heard anything, it will show up in the third contact tab. And 10 days later, if we still haven't heard anything, then they go straight to the creation workflow as opposed to any more contact to that place to try to collect any data. So we found this statistic rather interesting because we weren't, we thought it would be a lot higher. So we've collected 8,100 places now, and 88 have data license agreements, which is less than 1%. We thought it would be like 5 or 6 or 7% of the places would have a data license agreement. And of those 88, only 8 of those have refused to modify their data license agreement. One of the deliverables of this project is to be able to share this data with the USGS and PAD-US to help build that data set out. And that's obviously freely downloadable. The data set will also be freely downloadable off the ParkServe website. So often data license agreements have some sort of language about you need our permission to share it to a third party, or you just can't share it to a third party. So only 8 of these have not revised their data agreement. So we're still collecting their data. It just we won't be able to share it out to either PADIS or as a downloadable product from the website. So the creation piece is the second component. So if a place has not gotten back to us in the response, or they don't have any GIS data at all, it goes into this workflow. And obviously this can have a number of different types of paths. So maybe there's a list of parks with addresses, so you can do an XY on it and begin to digitize parks based on that. Maybe there's a PDF map that you can georeference. So that obviously is helpful. There could be parent data. So we collect data at the county or MPO level, and possibly that place said, oh, the county manages our data, or the MPO probably has it. And so we could use parent data to help us capture that place's park system. And then obviously there's the, well, there's no information at all workflow, which is essentially using street map, GNIS, park location point data, aerials, parcel data to try to capture where their parks are located. Once the data is loaded into the schema for that particular place, we bring in parcel data to actually capture ownership and management, if possible, to help begin to fill out the actual database structure. And so as you can begin to see, there's a huge issue with so many things going on at the same time, and being able to track what's going on and what places are where and what urban areas have been finished and where they are in the collection and creation process. So we developed a number of reporting tools. This is looking at the project as a whole. So the 8197 is more than halfway through those almost 14,000 places that we have to contact and collect data for. You can see the ramp up in the graph. The summertime, where we had all those 14 consultants working on this project, and the big lift that we had summer into fall, we're now in a steady climb regarding the contacts in the collection. And then this is a reporting form that looks at each iteration itself. So this is a much more detailed look. So the pie charts actually show you what's been collected, what has not been collected, how many are in data license agreement, how many are in creation, how many are in loading. So it's a really detailed look at where each iteration is. So you really begin to prioritize your future goals and your short time needs in terms of how the project is going. And then finally, we developed through Web App Builder a real simple way to spatially track urban areas. So this, you can go in and actually look at an urban area and spatially see how the collection is going. So the red areas you see are yet to be started. The green are fully collected. The yellow is a data license agreement. The blue are in progress. So it really gives you a spatial look at how an urban area that maybe has become a priority either for our organization or just in terms of lagging behind in the process, how it's doing and where we need to throw some resources. So the third component is the loading. And so this is actually taking the collected and creation data and transforming it into the data schema for the actual database. So really standardizing what that data looks like. And so in this example, there's 6 models that you see in the upper left. So the third model exports the data out into an Excel spreadsheet. And this is now becomes a manual process. There's really no other way to do this. In that Excel, we crosswalk the current data into the actual domains that the schema has to have for the database. The fourth model then takes that Excel and uploads it back in so it has the right schema. And then the fifth model is the actual data loader with the 6 first fields mandatory to fill in, and the other are optional and mostly get populated in the 6th model, which is like the place name, the state name, the zip code, the urban area name, things like that. So this is really beginning to put the database together through the loading process. So the fourth component, once we're loaded, is the actual modeling process. So this is a 2-step process. The first is to actually create the 10-minute walk service area. So everything prior to this has been done at the place level. The modeling process is taking place at the urban scale. And so the upper left, the Python scripts there, the first 3 look at unique IDs and topology issues. And then the bottom 3 actually create the service area. So it's creating access points. The access points are then run through network analysts using a walkable street network to create a dynamic 10-minute walk service area for every park within that urban area. If you're familiar with network analyst, or if you're not familiar with network analyst, it really is a detailed way to create service area, especially using a walkable street network. So you can bring in barriers, interstates, rivers, railroads. If that local walkable network doesn't get across the barriers, that service area doesn't get across the barrier. And so if someone lives on one side and the park's on the other, they don't get served. So very detailed. So once this step of the modeling is complete, we're now ready to share it back to the municipalities in each place to do a verification. So we've built an online data verification tool using CMV, which is an open source web development platform that allows each place to go into their park system and verify what we've either created or what we originally collected from them. So they're able to go in and you can click on a park, you can change the boundaries, you can add new parks, you can flag parks, add notes. All this is written up into a temporary database, which is then verified by us before it gets put into the master database. The user can click on the park and a window on the right there comes up where you can actually edit the attributes. So maybe access isn't open anymore, it's closed. So the person who's verifying this can change that. They can change the manager. And then if they're not tech savvy at all, they can access at the bottom a spreadsheet type form. So they don't even have to interact with the map. They can just go right down their list of parks and change those attributes if they want to look at it that way. And so then once verification is done and we've uploaded all the the edits into the final database, we then can do the second piece of the modeling, which is the needs part. So this map looks very similar to what the ParkScore maps look like. at the beginning of the presentation with the red and the orange. So we're using the same 3 demographic variables, population density, kids and youth. This is the draft result for Raleigh. The red areas are areas of high park need, very high park need in terms of those 3 demographic variables, in terms of people not being within a 10-minute walk of a park or open space. So where does North Carolina stand right now in our process? So these 6 places are complete or really close to being complete. Obviously the largest urban areas, which is where we started our efforts to begin with. This list, these are all have collected or created data for them already, so they're into the loading process or the modeling process, depending on how far along they are. This list is in progress, so these are in the contact collection creation piece. The list is getting longer as I go through slides, isn't it? So this is just one state. Imagine that this is what the list looks like for every state that we look at, just about. And then this is the list of places that are not started yet in North Carolina. So all these we'll reach out to them with email. They'll go through that whole collection or creation process, depending on what we hear or not hear from them in terms of having park data for their municipality. And then just to wrap up, we are on schedule to release May of 2018 the entire database. There'll be a website that will be an interactive platform where you can not only view, such as in Raleigh here, the urban area scale result, but you can go down into your own municipality and get your own need and access result with demographic statistics for your place. We'll have, if you have been to the ParkScore site, there's a park evaluator tool on there, which is a geodesign type tool where you can sketch a park and in a red and orange area in terms of, well, there's a vacant land here or the city owns this land, and if we put a park here, it will calculate how many people will be served within a 10-minute walk of that park if you put it there. So that tool will be in here. We're going to put, we've had such a great response to the verification tool that we're going to put that in there as a crowdsourcing type of apparatus where people can get in there and interact with actually adding and geo-enriching the database itself with amenities or quality or comments or whatever that might look like. And then we will have the full release, as I mentioned, will be May 2018. We are going to have a smaller release this coming fall, which will be about 2/3 of the population, urban population, will be in that release. Probably in September or October is what we're looking at. So very exciting. So thank you very much, and glad to take your questions. Yes.
Yeah, if you go back to the ParkScore map real quick, I just, I'm sorry. One that was
the Raleigh?
From where you were at. Yeah, Raleigh.
Yep.
So I think it's really interesting that downtown Raleigh, which we're all familiar with, I'm familiar with different sorry, but there's a lot of parks there, right? But they're accessible, but they also provide, like a limited public space. Whereas up, where my fiance lives up in the north suburbs, it seems like you would intuit from the red areas that there's a deficiency of some sorts, right? And I don't really find that to be the case personally in my experience, just because the suburban environment itself is kind of park-like insofar it's laid out. You can see far, you drive around. It's very relaxing, sort of in general. So I would say that there is kind of interesting dynamic in terms of what you see from like red being like dangerous and bad to the actual lived experience of around.
Observation or a question?
I'm just wondering if you've heard similar feedback.
Yeah, we have. So obviously that's decisions that policymakers within each municipality have to make in terms of, well, I mean, obviously the analysis can only be as good as one, where the parks are, and then the 10-minute walk, which is the standard we're using. We're using all parks the same. You know, a regional park is a 10-minute walk, or a pocket park is a 10-minute walk. We're not saying you can drive for a half an hour to get to the park. And so, you know, those policymakers really have to make a decision about, you know, where are the priorities and where are the people living and what are the needs and all that kind of stuff in terms of adding any new park space. And really what we have found in the ParkScore 100 cities, and many of those cities are beginning to turn towards this low-hanging fruit, is schoolyards. And having a joint use agreement that says schoolyards are open after school all weekend, you know, and who's unlocking them, who's cleaning them up, all that kind of stuff. But that really is the low-hanging fruit in terms of being able to expand your park system, is to use your schoolyards. Yes, in the back, ma'am.
Yes, how do you get your walkable street network?
So the question was, how do I get a walkable street network? So for ParkServe, we're using Street Map Premium, which has a walkable attribute in it. So they've already pulled out everything related to interstates and all that. In ParkScore, we have been using a local street centerline network that the city provides to us, and then we create the walkable network, unless of course that city has created one already for us, which is not very often the case. And so we've been doing that on our own, so. Walkable is purely based off of the road codes, so we're pulling out what we can from the road codes, so interstates, and then doing a sweep, essentially looking at, well, other 4-lane roads that come out in the road network, are they really walkable or not, or is there a sidewalk there that says they're walkable? So it's unless the city is providing us something, you know, that they're saying is walkable, then, you know, we're kind of going on, we got to standardize something across the cities. Yeah. 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 All the way in the back.
I have a question about your ParkServe reporting and how that was created. Had a quick slide showing how many you had, reporting back to you how many you had already serviced or contacted at least. So I just want to know how that was generated. Or maybe you can go into more detail on that.
Yeah. That slide. So this is using Microsoft Power BI, which you're able to then pull straight from the SQL databases to create. So it's a pretty easy interface to create something like this, if you have the back-end data to just pull it in. Yes, sir. Right. So the question was whether it's a tool for citizens or civic leaders or a balance. So we're hoping that ParkServe is a balance. What we found in the 6 years of ParkScore, which has become more of a not so much as citizen-based, but more of a planning tool for planners, but that it really generates really great conversation about parks within a municipality or within the 100 largest cities. So hopefully ParkServe will do the same, but we're planning that the database itself will be a mix of both. That you'll have the planning tool through the geo-design in terms of being able to sketch parks, but you also have the crowdsourcing piece of the verification to you know, get some more crowdsourced information and geo-enrich that data. So hopefully it's both. Obviously, you know, having a local park data set that's national for the very first time for researchers is going to be huge. It's going to be amazing to have that ability to access that type of data and do health stuff, do, you know, whatever researchers want to do on parks, because that's just not there right now. Any other questions? Yes. Either one.
Anybody can go in there, add that or comments, features. Is that a problem?
So the question was about the QC process, and whether it's a problem in terms of quality control. So the verification tool, in terms of actually verifying the data that goes out to the municipalities, is only sent to our contacts at the municipalities. It's not open to the general public. So we're dependent on that the GIS guy that we contacted or the park department person that we've talked to about the parks is going to go in there and look at it and say, oh, you missed this park, or that wasn't in our GIS data, or this boundary is, we don't own that half of it anymore, or whatever. So it's a very contained use group. Yeah, one more. It's enterprise. That's got ParkServe, and we got a whole server farm that the Trust for Public Land GIS team has. Great. Thank you very much.